And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Go ahead and say it, Ed. Go Tigers!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
F it. Jamar's down there somewhere.
The New Orleans Saints select Marcus Davenport.
No!
Splash Brothers? Yeah.
It's playoff. Keep going, Brace.
The playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
As we're coming into the fantasy 2023 season. These are typically players with good values in the mid to late rounds in your draft that we expect to exceed their value fairly significantly. Guys that are getting drafted fairly late that we think could end up leading you to a fantasy championship later on in the year. And as we do on all pods, first thing we're going to do is start out with a word of prayer. And Lord, thank you for letting us be here today, and thank you for blessing us as you do every single day, Lord. Just please be with everyone throughout the world and then listen to this podcast that need your touch, and we're just praying for them, and just be with them, Lord, and just please let us serve for you, Lord. And thank you for all the blessings you continue to bestow upon us, and just allowing us to do what we love and fellowship in your name. In your name we pray, Lord. Amen. And we're just going to roll right on into our sponsors that we really appreciate. And we're going to talk about these guys every pod because, they came out and supported us in the beginning, and we just appreciate that. And that's Big Reed BBQ, Automotive Detailing Solutions, This Little Piggy Barbecue Food Truck, and Mimi's Children's Boutique. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate it. And I'm going to let Clay talk a little bit about our highlighted sponsor this week, the Little Piggy Barbecue Food Truck. And Clay, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Little Piggy Barbecue Food Truck?
All right. So this Little Piggy is a food trailer based in Jonesboro that brings the best barbecue around to the people. You can find this Little Piggy and owner Kyle Terrell set up at events and festivals all around Jackson Parish and surrounding areas. To keep track of when you can get your hands on some amazing brisket or pulled pork, follow This Little Piggy on Facebook. Ooh. So shout out Kyle. He travels all around Jonesboro, Winfield, surrounding areas, and a lot of times he also does it for a good cause while also giving people great food. I know the past couple of times he's done some like donations to people in need with sickness and medical bills, stuff like that. So. Yeah, great calls. Kyle's a big football guy as well, so I'm sure he might be listening to this, gearing up for the season. But yeah, shout out This Little Piggy.
Well, those are two of my favorite things, brisket and pulled pork. Man, I haven't had a chance to try it, but I'm looking forward to tracking him down and getting some brisket and pulled pork in the future for sure.
Get it and then take it to your house and put some Big Reed on it when you get home.
That's exactly right. We're going to roll on into some news, some breaking news today. Right before the pod, some things started to happen in the world of free agency. We've been talking about some guys that are free agents, and there's a couple big signings this evening right before we decided to record this pod. And one of those is Ezekiel Elliott going to the Patriots, signing I believe it was a 1-year deal with the Patriots. And we're going to see how that plays out. That's definitely going to muddy the backfield a little bit. What do y'all think about that, Clay and Josh?
Yeah, I believe it's a $3 million deal up to $6 million, I'm sure, with incentives and stuff. And reports that I've seen say that like New England still values Ramondre as their guy. So I guess if you're a Ramondre owner already, don't freak out and think, oh, Zeke's coming to take the workload and anything like that. Mm-hmm. He's going to be pretty much, he'll get some carries probably around the goal line. He's also a really good pass blocker, people say, so he'll probably be in that role. Yep. But I think you could even make the argument that this move helps Ramondre, where it kind of gives him a breather, lets Zeke take some of the dirty work in between the tackles, stuff like that, because Ramondre's more of this explosive kind of guy and very talented with his hands and stuff. So, this might keep him fresh, and he don't want to become someone that just gets hurt like so many of these young guys seem to.
Completely agree there. And like you said, the pass blocking thing I'm sure was key, because as we know, Bill Belichick likes his players to do all things on the field, not just be able to do one thing, and pass blocking is such a big part of being a running back.
Yeah.
It's really not talked about. And honestly, it keeps a lot of running backs off the field, no matter how talented they are with the ball. But, of course, Bill Belichick would be one of those coaches that values what you do without the ball and helps the team when you don't have the ball in your hands. And I think that'll be big for him. And like you said, it's going to keep Stevenson fresh. And also, I really think, I don't know if many people remember, but Stevenson kind of took over the role while Damian Harris was hurt. And then when Harris came back, he really, I'd probably say he maybe played 30% of the snaps at the most after he came back. And I feel like it's going to be a similar role for Zeke stepping into that role. And I think you're still going to get the Ramondre Stevenson of the second half last year.
Yeah.
That this year for the whole year.
Yeah. Well, he's going to drop in rankings too, so you might be able to get him, around later, and be a steal. And we also know that Elliott playing the full year is probably not going to happen anyway.
Yeah, and I will say something here also. I am not drafting Zeke Elliott to play for the Patriots. We're not coming at you to tell you about Zeke to go and draft him. I don't think any of us really endorse him, but it is relevant because some people are going to be freaking out, like Clay said, about Ramondre's role, but I think it's pretty secure.
Sure. I know my brother Chance, he's in like a keeper league or something, and I think he kept Ramondre already. And with the reports of Dalvin going and visiting there and Fournette, he was like, I was getting worried, but now I feel like Zeke is the best like option for Ramondre owners because he doesn't have as much left in the tank, I guess you could say. And I don't think
I agree.
He's gonna like require a big role. I don't think he is at all.
That's right. And then we're going to roll on to our next big news, and that's going to be Dalvin Cook signing with the New York Jets. We kind of alluded to that on a prior pod. We all had a good feeling. I figured Dalvin Cook was just trying to hold out to see if they'd come to meet him on the money. And honestly, after hearing about Zeke's contract, I'm kind of wondering if he didn't get close to what he wanted, because I believe his contract was for 1 year, I think it was like $8.7 million.
Yeah, I just saw an article saying that Zeke getting his contract with the Patriots made it to where that was like the final nudge for Dalvin, because I think Dalvin wanted more than Zeke, which he should. And Dalvin's contract it's $7 million base up to 8.6 with incentives. So you're looking at a contract that's twice as much as Zeke off base money. So I think that right there, while you feel good about Ramondre with Zeke coming in, I don't think you feel that same you don't have that same feeling about Breece Hall owners.
Absolutely not. I hate it for anybody that's drafted already and they took him like with a second or third round pick. I just don't know if you're going to get that value out of him now.
Well, it also makes me wonder, is he not going to be ready? Did they need to make this move? Is he not progressing like they thought he should?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also with Dalvin,
question.
Dalvin had a knee surgery or something, like some type of minor surgery in February, and he won't be coming to training camp for like another week or a week and a half. So he might not even be might not be a full go come week 1.
Let's also think about this. Do we think Aaron Rodgers pushed for Dalvin Cook because of his experience and Breece Hall's inexperience in the backfield?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it.
We all know Aaron Rodgers is not the biggest fan of young players, especially when it comes to blocking his backside. So,
yeah.
I mean,
well,
I don't
know
it's
coming to the end of his end of his playing years,
right.
and he's doing all he can.
That's right.
To build a team that's going to be ready.
Yep. And I think Dalvin Cook being part of that team gives them a better a more versatile weapon to be on the field. Because if Breece Hall's not ready, Dalvin Cook can do it all. If he is ready, Dalvin Cook can fill whatever role they need him to. And, and I think, and they can ease Breece Hall back into it without losing games and not having a good running attack. Also, what also makes me think about that, I remember when Ty Montgomery was drafted by the Green Bay Packers, and then they were going to try to fill him into that role in the backfield. It was around the time Eddie Lacy was kind of washing up. And Ty Montgomery came in. They'd been talking about how well he pass catched out of the backfield. He was going to be a running back and a wide receiver. They were going to move him in the backfield. And I remember, I think it was like the first game. And he was getting drafted fairly high because Eddie Lacy was on the decline, and they thought he was going to take over. And there was one play. I remember this defensive end or linebacker, one of the two, was running on Rodgers' blind side, smoked Montgomery, and then smoked Rodgers. And I don't think Montgomery played anymore almost the rest of the season out of the backfield at all. Like, he was just gone. And they had Eddie Lacy, and I think the third string guy ended up playing some, and that was it. But I'm just like, it just makes me think Rodgers, like, man, I'm not going to have some cat don't know how to pass block, because, I mean, Breece Hall, I mean, what did he have? He had a cup of coffee last year for what, like 5 games, maybe? Yeah. And we don't know where his pass blocking is at, and if he hasn't been able to have contact, Rodgers doesn't know either. And I'm sure he's watched film on him and he has an idea. So this could be a Rodgers move also for somebody he might be more comfortable with. And I know we talked about on the last pod, Dalvin Cook practiced with them, which was crazy to me. He practiced with them and he ain't even playing for them. And I'm like, for me, like, that's a big one on Dalvin Cook. Because what if he goes out there and practices and tears an ACL or something? Yeah. Like,
and he was also putting a lot of stuff on social media about the Jets.
Yeah. And,
which was a big sign.
I think they had it. And last but not least about Dalvin Cook, then we're going to roll on. But, a couple things. But first, Jets and the Bills play Week 1 Monday Night Football. How about that showdown? Rodgers and this new Jets offense against the formidable Bills high-powered offense. James Cook finally getting the show in Buffalo against his brother in the new show for the New York Jets, Dalvin Cook. Man, dude, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I do not think the NFL is scripted, but sweet mother, does anybody think that they might have been like, hey, man, we'll front $5 million if you sign with the Jets just so we can streamline that headline?
More storylines,
Dude, that's gonna be
where's that game at?
Massive watched game. Hang on and I will tell you.
Because that's also 9/11.
Well, and it.
Oh my gosh!
Really, it could decide the conference. I mean, the game like
really
that.
Could. It is at New York.
Okay,
at the Jets.
Which New York is the New Jersey team, even though it's New York. But
New Jersey. Okay, New Jersey. Yeah, but
they're the New York Jets, but they play in New Jersey. But yeah, the two of the three.
We might have to talk about possibly. Go ahead. 2 of the 3 what?
Yeah, two of the 3 New York teams are playing on 9/11 in the New York area. So that is really cool.
Well, I have no doubt the NFL probably playing that.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
No doubt.
But this almost feels like one that we might have to try to host a live pod or something on.
Yeah.
If y'all don't host one with the Dirty Boot Sports, possibly a live fantasy, because that'll be a big fantasy game. I mean, we're talking Rodgers and we're talking Garrett Wilson, Dalvin Cook if Breece Hall comes back, Josh Allen, the whole shebang.
Diggs.
So that'll be a good one. Diggs, James Cook, a big breakout possibility this year. So. And then what were you talking about their names before the pod, Clay? So what are Dalvin and James' names?
So it's Dalvin James Cook and then James Dalvin Cook. So I guess the parents had that planned out after the name Dalvin James Cook, and then they were like, let's just flip it when they had baby brother. So pretty cool.
Yeah.
So did they
Pretty
refer to
interesting.
them as DJ and JD?
Hey, they could.
I
They
mean,
could.
I would have if it was my kids, but
Yeah.
that's just me. Yeah, that's a little bit of some big player signings this evening. And then another thing we want to throw out there right now going on ESPN is the Fantasy Football Marathon. Happens every year, 24 hours straight on ESPN of nothing but fantasy football. And something that we mentioned, I think it's the last like 3 hours they host a live fantasy football draft with all the analysts, and it's pretty cool. A lot of the guys that you get to see coming with all the breaking news and their busts and sleepers picks. You get to see them all draft against each other, a live draft. I thought that was pretty cool. I got to watch it last year, and honestly, and they give their breakdown of their pick as they're going draft and why. And it's pretty cool to see them dog each other and kind of snipe each other in the draft because they all know what each other like and picks that each other have, and it's quite entertaining. I really enjoy it, and that's something you want to maybe think about catching because it's going to have a lot of good fantasy information. And if I'm not mistaken, like we were talking about, after the marathon ends, the whole episode for 24 hours should be on the ESPN Plus app. Which is pretty cool. I know, Clay, didn't you say something you kind of make a point to try to watch every year? And I know Josh said the same thing. Isn't that right?
Yeah. I know. I mean, at least 5, probably 7 years or so, or however long they've been doing this. I remember when they finally announce whenever it is, I go through my dish guide and I record every show, and I would always watch them back throughout the week or so because yeah, it's very entertaining, and best of all, even if you're like not tuned in to it specifically just for like watching the fantasy content, if you just tune into Sports Center or something throughout the day, you get the fantasy borders all around the screen, so you can see player rankings and schedules and stuff like that pops up, kind of like the NFL draft does. And yeah, it's kind of just gets you in the mood and knows that fantasy's right around the corner.
Right around the corner. Hey, maybe one day we'll have a 24-hour fantasy episode.
Hey, I'm ready.
Maybe one day. I need my 4-year-old to grow up a little bit more before we get to that. And then moving on to our last and unfortunately our last piece of news here. If you've been playing fantasy for quite some time, you might remember this running back Alex Collins. Played for the Baltimore Ravens for a couple years, and then a couple years in Seattle for the Seahawks. Passed away tragically in a motorcycle accident. I believe it was yesterday evening or today there, Clay.
Yeah, it was last night about 10 o'clock, and I guess they got all the news out and everything today. Yeah, sad news. I mean, he's someone that if you, maybe not just casual NFL fans, but especially fantasy players, diehard fantasy players, he's one of them running backs that you see the name and you're like, yeah, I probably picked him up a couple times, and he feels a fill in for my team 1 week or so, and yeah, very talented player, and I think it was playing in the USFL this past spring, it said. So obviously was still in football shape and everything like that. Only 28. Yeah, sad news for sure.
Yep, thoughts and prayers out to his family. It's just crazy. I think I had him like whenever he busted out. I'm pretty sure I had him on every one of I got him in off waivers on every one of my fantasy teams there for a while because a lot of people were like, who's this cat?
Yeah.
Whenever he first broke out, and I had him on several teams there for a while, and he was a fairly good running back. I was shocked he was out of the league whenever you said that, playing in the USFL, because he was still fairly serviceable. But now talking about we've got Zeke as a free agent, Dalvin Cook as a free agent, Leonard Fournette is still a free agent, Kareem Hunt. You think about all these talented free agent running backs just floating around out there. I can imagine that teams would assign them over him, but it's like it's just crazy to think about. But
yeah, definitely.
Either way, tragic accident. Thoughts and prayers out to his family for sure. And moving on, and we're just going to go ahead and get into the meat of the show. We're going to cover quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. Our picks that are players that we think are just getting slept on in draft situations this year. And let's go ahead and get it kicked off with Josh. Why don't you give us your sleeper quarterback for the year?
All right. Well, this guy, I think, kind of flew under the radar last year. He ended up top 10 finish, and that's Jared Goff. He's being drafted at 17 as a quarterback this year. He threw for 4,438 yards and 29 touchdowns last year. He thrived under the new OC, Ben Johnson, who was back for another year with what should be a better team. He still got the clear-cut number one wide receiver in Amon-Ra. And then they drafted a good pass-catching running back in Gibbs. I think this team gets healthy, it's going to be better. He's a solid quarterback that don't really get a lot of respect. Probably won't never be a top-tier quarterback, but he could definitely throw for 30-plus touchdowns this year, 4,500 yards plus. I mean, if you a solid around 10, possibly 8 quarterback, and you're getting him, late in draft towards the bottom. If you went the no quarterback route, late and picked up somebody late in the draft, you could get this quarterback is not going to lose you games. And then there's going to be some games where he could, finish top 3. I think he had a couple of number one finishes last year, weeks.
Several weeks.
So I think he's getting slept on, and especially like I said, if you're not going to take one of the top tier quarterbacks and you want to wait, I mean, he's the perfect guy. I think he finishes probably at least around 10 again this year from where he's drafted. I think
that's right.
Hey, great sleeper.
And I think he's going to have those weeks again, honestly, where he's up in that 1, 2, 3 range. Like, really, honestly, not that tough of a division. Give me 1 second, I'll give you a strength of schedule. But I know last year,
especially defensively.
All right. So strength of schedule, 7th easiest schedule for quarterback in the league. I mean, great schedule right there. Mine that we'll talk about a little bit's got that beat just a little bit, but this guy's already kind of done it last year, and people are still sleeping on him. I couldn't believe his average draft position is 155. Okay. Amon-Ra is still there. Yeah, he lost DJ Chark, but they signed Marvin Jones, a good wily veteran, just to hold him over for a couple weeks until Jameson Williams comes back. All right. They let Hawkinson go. It still didn't slow him down when they trade him mid-year or something like that last year, right?
Mid-year,
and still didn't slow him down. All right. And then now we're getting all these reports out of training camp about this young, I think he's a rookie. I have to pull him up. I'm
Sam
sure,
Laporta.
Remember Sam Laporta.
You might hear his name
real
later.
Talented. Yeah. Well, I guarantee you'll hear him during the year. I'm pretty sure. But really talented, athletic, young tight end. Yeah, let's see. Yep, brand new, just got drafted. Where did he get drafted out of? Iowa.
Tight end University.
How many tight ends
That's right.
have come out of Iowa? So, I mean, you want to talk about some lineage right there. And he's coming in. Amon-Ra, you got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, who's an underrated pass catcher. I mean, you just add all these weapons, and he's got a top 10 offensive line in front of him that was not talked about enough last year.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude had time for days. And anyway, I think it's a great sleeper pick. I was pretty shocked. I mean, I look at the names ahead of him, and it's kind of like, I mean, I could see a lot of them have name value, but they haven't really lived up to that hype the last couple of years. And he did it last year, and not that much has changed.
Yeah.
So, well, actually, I think they got better. How you think he would have went up instead of down? He dropped. He went from 10, and now he's ranked 17. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Anyway, I completely agree, and I think that's a great pick.
Yeah,
so,
he's somebody that he doesn't have the highest ceiling, I guess you would say, but His floor feels pretty
That's
safe
right.
compared to others. And I think we talked
Yep.
about it last week where there's a couple of them quarterbacks in like the top 10-ish range where it feels like you can kind of take the shot on them, maybe like a Justin Fields or something.
Mhm.
And then you want this, I guess, safety net, handcuff type quarterback
right.
where, someone that runs as much as Fields did last year
Mhm.
might go down a week or two, and then you want to,
Yep.
plug and play Jared Goff. So I like that
That's
pick
right.
a lot.
Definitely. What about you, Clay? Who you got as your guy?
All right, I got Geno Smith. So Geno,
Yep.
he is right now on ESPN 121 overall ADP, and then QB
Mhm.
15. Last year he finished behind these quarterbacks: Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. That's it. He was quarterback
Yep.
5. He's quarterback
Yep.
5, and the team got better. He got Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yep.
He got a contract. I guess
Yep.
that could be looked at as a negative from maybe some perspective, but he doesn't have to, I guess, be looking over his shoulder the whole time. He knows that this is his team right now, and that like
Mhm.
he's got the trust of the organization. He's not like fighting for his life. You added JSN. You did lose Rashad Penny, but maybe that is a positive. You get to work in Kenneth Walker some more. You draft Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA. I mean, Noah Fant, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett,
Yep.
Smith and Jigba, Pete Carroll. I don't understand QB 15 at all. I don't. Especially, last year QB
Yeah.
5.
A lot of
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're right. And I looked at him for mine. I looked at both of those guys possibly as my guy. And one of the main things I kept thinking about, people forget Noah Fant's there.
Mm-hmm.
One of the better pass.
He's a freak
Seattle's
athletically.
Seattle's never really used their tight end a ton. But he is one that he creates on his own when you get him the ball. But then you got these 3 outstanding wide receivers and then a decent running game. Kenneth Walker is definitely, and then they say Charbonnet catches the ball very well out of the backfield. So, the opportunities there, and their defense is not the formidable defense it was at one time. So, they're going to be in shootouts more often than you think, and they were last year, which is why he had the production he did. And I think a lot of the times, people don't look at the defense on the other side as much. And when they have a poor defense, those guys tend to have to throw the ball and score more. And when you have the talent that he has, I think that's a great pick. And I don't see it as well. It's just honestly, there's a big conglomeration of guys from like pretty much 5 to 20 that it seems like could go anywhere in there.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, it could be 10 points separating a whole bunch of them. At the most.
That's the thing with the quarterback position is that gap from QB1 to QB 15 or 20 is not as drastic as it is with wide receiver or running back 1 to 20. Like you can pretty much, besides maybe the Mahomes or the like Lamar MVP years or maybe Jalen Hurts last year, like those guys that are a little bit above the level, I guess you could say. But it's kind of crazy, and I know Josh talked about it earlier where he said he don't think he's ever drafted a quarterback before like round 7, and I'm right there with him. Mid rounds is usually my sweet spot for quarterbacks, and I think Geno's another guy that you can pair up with a Justin Fields or maybe even like a Joe Burrow, somebody that has a couple injury questions coming in, and have that safety net. Or worst case scenario, you have this talented quarterback with, I guess, a high upside offense around him. Say somebody else's quarterback goes down week 1 or 2, you make a trade. Trade bait's always good to have. I like Geno a lot.
Yep.
Well, I think both of these guys we just talked about, Goff and Geno Smith, they're not big names, and unless you had them on your teams last year, you probably didn't realize how good they were.
Yeah.
And or if you're a fan of that team, you might have watched.
Yep.
But I think they drop in drafts because people just don't realize what they really done last year.
Well, and Geno had such a bad name from his time with the Jets. I know whenever he was starting to come on at Seattle, I was one of those. I was like, not Geno Smith. There ain't no way. And then the next thing you know, he's got like 3 in a row top 5 finishes and points at quarterback, and I'm just like, man, and I had him on one of my teams that I had Russell Wilson on, and Lord, he saved me there because Russell Wilson was trash last year.
Yeah.
Geno Smith comes out of nowhere to save.
I mean, what was Geno before the year last year? Probably QB 30. Like he had to have been way low.
Dude,
Probably
they thought
last.
Drew Lock was gonna start. And then all of a sudden Geno comes in preseason lighting the world on fire, and they're like, well, Drew Lock comes in, throws a couple picks, and then next thing you know, he don't even play week 1 or after. So I mean,
he never wrote back.
More power, good for Geno. That's right, not letting it hold him back.
You kept waiting for him to fall off, and he just never did.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
QB5, man. QB5.
Yep. Hey, and you never know whenever that player, it's just gonna click for them, and then when it clicks and they understand the game, that's what happens. So we'll see this year. He keeps it rolling, but there's no reason on his team for sure to say that he won't. And then we'll go ahead and lead on into my homer pick for the night. I was between a couple of the guys that we all talked about, and then this guy, Derek Carr for the Saints. I mean, yes, I am a Saints fan, but typically with fantasy, I try not to let that interfere with my thoughts and I guess analysis. But this still, to me, I was a big proponent of them signing him when he became a free agent. Kyle, I know he's talked about it before. Like, whenever he was a free, I said, Saints need to go sign him. I said he would pair great with this team. Solid offensive line, deep threat with Olave. If Michael Thomas can go back and come back for the short yardage game, at the time, I think Troutman was our tight end. He would have been fine, but then we ended up letting him go. We got Juwan Johnson, comes out of nowhere. I mean, the offense, for one, as a whole for the Saints, a lot of people are probably a little sour from last year because if I'm not mistaken, it was like bottom 5 or bottom 8 in the league in just about every statistical offensive statistic in the league last year. So a lot of people are like, man, I don't know about the Saints offense anymore. But we were so close. We're really a quarterback away with that offense. I mean, yeah, Kamara had some injuries, and then we really didn't have a solid, backup. We had Ingram come in, wasn't the same Ingram. And then our third string guy didn't really pan out. The running back, Michael Thomas, got hurt 3 plays into the season again. At least he showed up, I guess, this time. But then he got hurt like 3 plays or 2 games in, whatever it was. I think he had one game. Didn't he have one good game, guys?
Like 80 yards and a touchdown against the Falcons week
17, 17 points or something. And then the next game hurts his toe or something, or ankle, or I don't know.
It was toe.
Goes down again, out for pretty much the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And then it seemed like that there goes our season.
And then also,
I think
Jameis went down, I think, like week 3 or 4, like right after that with Mike too. And then Dalton kind of took the reins.
And it could be
he made it. He made the offense formidable. I guess it was okay. It was just a rough year, and something with the Mike injury. I guess we knew we weren't going to win probably the division, or especially not the Super Bowl last year. So you can kind of look at last year as like a blessing in disguise, because now you got Chris Olave that full year of kind of being the guy. You got to learn who Rashid Shaheed is, who looks like he's our wide receiver 3. You got to see Juwan Johnson. So many of these guys that, wouldn't have really been relevant last year if Mike was out there being Mike, look like they're going to be very important this year, while we also look like we have a locked-in Mike that is happy with Derek Carr and happy to be a Saint after the whole contract situation. So, everything is set in stone. Also, Foster Moreau at tight end. I mean, Jamal Williams, backup running back. Kendre Miller, if he can stay healthy. There's so much talent around Derek Carr. Definitely the most talent he's ever had. He doesn't have Devontae Adams, but he's got a lot of talent, and yeah, I mean, there's no reason for him not to succeed.
A majority of fantasy analysts I've heard this year expect Chris Olave to surpass Devontae Adams in the fantasy aspect, at least, of football. So
that's bold.
I mean, I'm just saying, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them that think he is going with Derek Carr as his quarterback after doing what he did last year with a conglomeration of Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton. They think Derek Carr is going to take him to that next level, and I think he's going to help Derek Carr get back to that level that we've seen.
Olave, you have to look at him pretty much how you look at Garrett Wilson, because Garrett Wilson did it with Mike White, Joe Flacco, and Zach Wilson last year. They both put up like 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns or whatever. I mean, it was pretty much a tie for Offensive Rookie of the Year. But yeah. I don't know if I'm going to put him on Devontae level yet, because I mean Devontae he's 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns pretty much every year, it feels like. But yeah, I mean Olave, he has the talent, that's for sure.
I don't think Devontae does that this year.
Really?
Last that I heard, Jimmy G was having problems getting him the ball 40 yards down the field.
Oh yeah, Jimmy don't throw a deep ball.
If he can't throw up some of those jump balls, I just don't know if he gets to that point again. I really don't.
And I think Adams is already hurt.
Well, he's probably
he's good though.
Quote unquote hurt. He's probably trying to decide, is this going to be worth my time? But anyway, I'm not going to get off into that. We'll finish talking about Derek Carr. But another reason that I really like, most talented quarterback that New Orleans has had, Kamara looked fairly healthy. Yes, he's serving the 3-game suspension. Looked fairly healthy in the preseason. So did Jamal Williams. The offensive line looked good. Their first drive, Carr seemed very comfortable. It was against all of Kansas City's ones except for their big defensive tackle.
Chris Jones.
Is it Frank Clark? I think is what it. Chris Jones. Sorry. Yeah. Frank Clark was in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chris Jones, he's on a contract holdout, which – I mean, he's a fairly big piece, but still, as far as the secondary linebackers, they were all there. But anyway, another thing, Derek Carr's strength of schedule this year, 3rd easiest strength of schedule for a quarterback in the league. All right, for Derek
Who's 1
Carr,
and 2?
He's got. Well, give me 1 second, and I will tell you.
Probably somebody else in our division, as bad as it is.
That's true. It's probably Desmond Ritter or something.
You're probably exactly right there.
Because I remember when we did that NFC South preview, we had our schedule's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Another name we got to mention whenever you talk about the Saints, talking about that preseason game, A.T. Perry, the rookie out of Purdue, looked really, really good.
That's right.
Caught a good touchdown from Jameis. I think he had 6 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown. So he might be our number 4, maybe our number 5. And also Keith Kirkwood caught that touchdown from Derek Carr. He feels like he always finds a way back to the Saints. He's a solid depth piece. And Jimmy Graham, another name.
I was just fixing to say, can't forget Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy Graham, we're out there preseason game 1.
We're just talking about all these weapons and this depth that we think we have now. And you got Derek Carr being drafted as QB 19. I mean, not going to be drafted in 95% of leagues, Now we are, we're in Louisiana, so there's going to be some people out there that are going to draft him because they're Saints fans, and
too early.
But he is exactly another quarterback to pair with somebody that's injury prone, or maybe a little bit of a question mark at quarterback. Somebody like we just said that you could draft like you do Jared Goff or Geno that's going later. He's another guy that you really should think about. I don't, I'm not saying Carr is going to be a top 5 quarterback, nothing crazy like that. But could he be 9 or 10? I think he could.
Yeah. And from where he's drafted, you don't expect a top 5 for where you're drafting him. But if you can get a 10 from where you drafted him and stack your team with other players.
Yep. And I mean, he's still young. He's got Olave. There's going to be big plays too. That's something else I wanted to mention. He throws a great deep ball, and Olave is a great deep ball catch receiver. And if you get big bonuses for big plays in your league, he is somebody you really want to think about drafting, both him and Olave, or stack them, honestly. Because if you get a big bonus, could you imagine a 50-yard bomb for a touchdown with the quarterback and the wide receiver? I mean, I got a league that's like 6 bonus points for a 50-yard, touchdown catch on top of what you get, So, I mean, that's a lot of points there. I mean, it's something that they might have one big catch every week,
between Olave and Shaheed, they're gonna be running.
Yeah. So I look forward to it. I think he's going to have a good year. I really hope he gets our Saints back on the map because Lord knows everybody was talking how bad about our offense last year. That's for sure.
Well, that's the one thing I was going to bring up. Everything, all the talent in the world, I think he's going to do well there. Coaching is the one question mark I think we have with the Saints.
I think the only thing that can overcome something like that is an experienced NFL quarterback that understands offenses and could put his input and make changes with his experience. I think that's about the only thing that we can really, I guess, hope for, I guess you could say, with that, because they say that he is like one of those few quarterbacks that makes a lot of line changes, a lot of audibles when he comes up. And that's what you typically see in somebody that's a very cerebral player. Drew Brees was that same type of player. And I mean, Lord, I hope we could have a whole nother scenario with a Drew Brees-like thing. Because, I mean, it was similar for Drew Brees. He was in San Diego for years. He was heralded. They thought he was going to be the man, and then he got hurt, which is a little bit different because he got hurt, and then they let him go and drafted, what's his name? Ryan Leaf.
Oh, Ryan Leaf.
And, let him go and drafted Ryan Leaf. Lord, that didn't work out for him. But anyway, so then he comes to the Saints and it revives his career and he becomes this Hall of Fame player. He was not even close in San Diego. And he comes to the Saints and Hall of Fame player. I mean, could it happen? I mean, could, because honestly, you make an argument as far as physical attributes, Derek Carr surpasses Drew Brees. He's got better arm strength. He's bigger. He probably, I don't know if he runs better. I couldn't compare 40 times. I don't have it there, but I know he's got a bigger arm than Brees did.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen him guns on him?
And if he's as cerebral and can kind of come, I mean, who knows? You never know. This might revive him. Now, he doesn't have Sean Payton as his coach, which I think
that's a big thing.
Drastic, but you never know. So I hope the best for him. But that's enough about quarterbacks, guys. Let's go ahead and roll on to some running backs. Josh, who you got at your number one running back sleeper?
All right, so my number one running back sleeper is Rashad Penny. Of course, with him, you have to bring up the injury history. He played 18 games over the past 3 seasons. This is what we refer to in the fantasy world as high risk, high reward. But at his ADP at the 10th round with the offensive fit in Philly, he's a big play waiting to happen. He should emerge as the starting early down back, I would think, on a run-oriented Eagles team behind one of the best lines in NFL. In the past, when he's healthy, he's shown signs of being one of the better runners in the league. Over the last 2 seasons, no runner has converted a higher percentage of runs into big plays. I read that. And I think, what was it, like 2 or 3 years ago, the second half of the year, I think he led the league in rushing.
I believe that was 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was either one of the last two for sure.
Yeah, because last year Kenneth Walker kind of took over a little bit there, but the year before that, that's why Rashad Penny was so high on draft boards last year. And then he got hurt preseason, didn't he? Was it preseason when he got hurt, if I'm not mistaken? It was early, practice or something like that. And but yeah, the year before, I mean, was killing it. And like you said, led the league in rushing. And coming into the offseason, it was going to be the Rashad Penny show. They drafted Kenneth Walker, but it was still going to be the Penny show. And then he got hurt. And I mean, the rest is history, you know. But I completely agree. I looked at him. You know, a lot of people, there's a lot of Kenneth Gainwell talk. I really think it's just a bunch of smoke, honestly. They don't bring in Penny and Swift not to use them. Kenneth Gainwell was already there. If they liked him so much, why sign two more running backs? Now, he might come in and have a role. Who knows? They might give him a shot to do something, but I just don't. I'm not buying the hype that he's their RB1. I think it's going to be a lot of Penny because Penny's talented, man. Like you said, I mean, when he's healthy, he's like one of the best statistical running backs in the league currently. I mean, and that's up there. Like he's right there. If I'm not mistaken, he's right behind in averages with CMC on his rushing, but he's just not as healthy for long stretches like McCaffrey has been. And
yeah. And
so I think
Penny,
if he's
Penny
out there
was a
healthy,
guy that
I think the talent's going to shine through.
Yeah, Penny was a guy that was a first round draft pick in 2018. It was the Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, all them Lamar Jackson draft. It was that year, and it was a very unexpected pick, but at the same time, it was like, oh, Rashad Penny's a good back. He's going to Seattle. They've got talent. They always use their running backs well. It seemed like it was going to work because I mean you knew of Rashad Penny and his work, and never could stay healthy, but you know, maybe getting out of Seattle where it seems like everybody gets hurt at running back. Maybe he has some better fortune in Philly.
And if he stays healthy, it's definitely going to be a good litmus test for that, because if he stays healthy, Lord, we know it's Seattle.
Yeah.
Must be something in their coffee. But no, and also, you know, one thing with this news about a lot of talk about Gainwell out of camp, and if anything, that's going to drive his draft stock down. And I would still bet that he's going to be, you might get toward the end of your draft and he might still be sitting there. And I think he is well worth your last pick. And I know that sounds crazy now, but when you got Swift and the Gainwell talk with him, you know, getting all this buzz, and I mean, we see it every year. There's always some player here and there that gets a ton of buzz in training camp, and he gets drafted fairly high, and then the season starts and he don't even really play. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, snap, you know. And I think Kenneth Gainwell could be that guy this year.
Well, he ended up being the Miles Sanders of last year.
It's possible.
Yeah.
To where he was injury prone, come into Philadelphia. People were not picking him in the drafts. He would drop.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that took a chance on him late panned out.
Paid off. Yep.
I don't know that he'll have that big a role, but if it's anywhere close, I mean, for where he's drafted, like we were saying, hey, and you're an injury away from Swift, from, you know, really getting some time. But you can say that for Swift too. You're an injury from Penny from doing the same thing. So,
well, I think it's a good bet late, and he's going a lot later. He's going to be a lot cheaper than Swift.
Yeah, and given the draft
honestly, I think I'd rather have him.
Given the draft situations, like you could almost take a shot on Penny and Gainwell. I mean, as like a 14th and 13th round pick. Like, man, that's not a terrible idea, because
that's exactly right.
In Philly, multiple running backs are going to be almost fantasy relevant on a given week, and also if one goes down, the other is going to get even a bigger role. So,
exactly right. So, all right. Well, what about you, Clay? Who you got?
I got Khalil Herbert. So Chicago running back, number 110 overall right now on ESPN draft list. running back 36. Preseason game, week 1, Deontay Foreman did not play with the starters at all. And every snap that Justin Fields took, Khalil Herbert was right beside him. So it looks like it's Herbert's job. I know there was definitely some noise about Foreman coming up after having a pretty good year last year in Carolina. If it was going to be like a just 50-50 split type thing, but Herbert had a great year last year behind Montgomery and kind of looked better than Montgomery most of the time. And it looks like Herbert. I mean, it looks like
he did.
It looks like this is his job. And as I said, number 110 overall. Actually, this changed already?
I was about to say, now, from what I've heard, his stock is going up tremendously fast.
All right, so I made this list at about 6 o'clock.
Yep.
ESPN has updated it since then. He is up to 82.
I was about to say, I was going to say, I bet money before
the
next week starts, he's going to be out inside the top 100. Because I've had several analysts talking, because there was a lot of people thought it was going to be a timeshare, and there was no timeshare. It was all Khalil Herbert.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people have kind of changed their tone, because there was a lot of people labeling him as a bust because they thought that his value, he wasn't going to be worth his value because he was going to be in a timeshare for Chicago. And it ended up not really looking like the case, because he was the only one that ran with the ones. And I think that's a great pick, even though he's not going to be sleeping long. I think he's jumped around Labor Day.
He's already jumped.
There's a good chance he's going to be way up there.
He's jumped up 28.
But if you're drafted next week or anytime soon, you need to jump on the Khalil Herbert train. Now, I will
definitely
one word of caution for that, and there is a rookie that they drafted that is a mountain of a man. He's 6 foot, 220 pounds, Roschon Johnson.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are not as familiar with him because he played behind Bijan. But we've seen running backs before coming into the league that played behind big names come and get drafted that end up working out.
Yeah.
You know. But he's not it's gonna be Khalil Herbert's show, and if he performs, he's not gonna take it from him, I don't think.
Yeah.
Now, if he goes down with an injury, or if he really doesn't perform at all, then you might have to worry. But until then, he's a great value, and it's his show to lose.
Yeah. What I've seen is that Foreman and Johnson are pretty much battling out for the backup role to Herbert.
Yeah.
And even if, at 110, it was a heck of a value, but even at 82, that's a 9th round draft pick. And who's to say he even gets drafted there? He might fall a little bit lower just because it is Chicago. And while we are starting to see that it might be Herbert's job, there still is a little bit of fear, as you mentioned, with Roschon Johnson, with Deontay Foreman, with maybe Chicago being more of a passing offense with how it looked week 1. But yeah, Herbert also was like a 53-yard touchdown catch in that first game. Yeah, he's got the talent. 9th round draft pick, maybe your 4th running back on your team, who might be an RB1 on his team.
Exactly right.
Take that.
Yep. I completely agree.
Well, Chicago's not going to go away from the run. He's going to throw up more. Their top running back's going to get 20 carries.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he's going to have a big role.
Yep. I completely agree. I think that's a great pick. And like I said, it might not be a sleeper pick by the time a lot of us draft, but if you're drafted anytime soon, get in on Khalil Herbert, because I bet probably by Labor Day, he's going to probably be in somewhere in the 60s.
Yeah.
60s
and honestly,
60s range.
Honestly, the name Khalil Herbert itself might make it a sleeper. Because I know there's a lot of times where I'm in a league that everyone isn't a diehard fantasy expert or anything like that, and if it's just casual people, there's going to be those names where they're like, "Who is this?" One that I've been looking at that has been in the news recently with a little bit of injury, Rachaad White. He's number 43 on the draft boards, which is one spot ahead of Alvin Kamara. I'll tell you right now, Alvin Kamara is going before Rachaad White in every draft. Especially down here, just because of the name.
Oh yeah, in Louisiana for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So Khalil Herbert, while he might be 82 come draft day or maybe 60, I wouldn't be shocked if he drops 10 or so picks just because it's not a proven name in these most of these home leagues and stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, and like saying, Foreman played for Carolina, and the Saints played him twice, so people know that name.
That's right.
Around here,
and no one was watching the Bears.
Great. Yeah, that's exactly right. And if
sure.
they were, only thing they were paying attention to was Fields.
Yes.
Yeah, but moving on. Last running back we got this evening will be mine. Guy out of Denver, another new face in a new place. Samaje Perine, ADP of 129, so going really late. Somebody that I feel like was really kind of breaking out when Joe Mixon was gone in Cincinnati. This is a fairly easy pick for me as late as he's going, which I guess this just goes to speak of how many running backs there are out there, like we were talking about in these kind of mid rounds. They're just stacked with running back talent because wide receivers taking over the league. But Perine coming in, a lot of people just see that he's number 2 on the depth chart behind Javonte Williams in Denver, an offense that was somewhat terrible last year. I don't even know if you say somewhat. I'm pretty sure it was just terrible last year. But so they see he's in Denver. They see he's the number 2 running back, but a lot of people don't realize. I mean, we do because we're familiar with Sean Payton, but Sean Payton's there. Javonte Williams coming off a major knee injury in week 4 last year. So not even really it's the beginning of the season, but it wasn't early in the beginning of the season. It was kind of in that, end of the first quarter of the, almost the end of the first quarter of the season last year. And he's not even really come back all the way yet. So he's been activated, I believe, from the PUP list, but he hasn't played any game time snaps. Another thing, 6th easiest strength of schedule for running backs in Denver. And we know Sean Payton has a history of using 2 running backs in his system, not to mention one of them's banged up coming off an injury. I would not be shocked if Samaje Perine gets 70, maybe 80% of the snaps, at least the first couple weeks. And who's to say if he doesn't perform really well with those with that chance that he doesn't take on a larger role for a majority of the season. And Javonte Williams just ends up being that kind of third down back. And then, we all know Sean Payton's going to make this offense better. There's no way he comes in and it's just as bad as it was before. Us as Saints fan know that more than anybody because, we all remember the Aints days, and then Sean Payton comes in and saves the world, And I don't know if that's going to happen in Denver for them, but if it does, I definitely want a piece of this backfield. And if I can draft a guy that's at least going to probably be the RB1 for them the first couple weeks with Williams coming off an injury at pick 129, sign me up. So
yeah.
What do y'all think about it, guys?
Well, if you pick Javonte Williams, you have definitely got to get Perine.
Yeah,
to go with it.
And this might be one of those backfields, like Clay said earlier. Draft both of them.
Yeah, you got to. If you're gonna get one, you just go ahead and get the other one because they're both talented. And Perine looked great last year. Actually, I thought he looked better than Mixon.
That was something I meant to say that I had written down here. The 2 weeks he played, Mixon sat out. He was RB2 both weeks.
Yeah,
both weeks RB2.
Wow.
Now that is for Cincinnati's offense, which I don't know. I don't think Denver's going to be Cincinnati's offense.
Denver's O-line's probably better.
He was RB2. Maybe it might be. Maybe not now, but not with Orlando Brown. But anyway, RB2 both weeks. That was something else. And also one other thing that I had in there to mention. He is going after the third guy in some of these 3 running back committees. Like, I'm pretty sure, I think Kenneth Gainwell has surpassed him in Philadelphia. All right. So they're going to draft Swift, Penny, and Gainwell ahead of Perine.
Yeah.
Just
crazy.
Just a thought out there. Anyway, so
another thing I do want to mention
like
about
Perine
that
a lot. I think people are sleeping on him. Go ahead.
Another thing is like Javonte Williams. It feels like he's been this kind of like actual fantasy performer and everything. And I think we talked about this maybe the first episode of this pod whenever we started getting back into it. But like it feels like he's more of a name than he is someone that's actually consistently performed yet. Like it feels like it's Javonte Williams' team,
right.
but he's done nothing to like be talked about as if he's just like the solidified RB1. Like there's it would not surprise me at all if Perine goes in and just outperforms and gets 70-80% of the touches. And then Javonte's kind of the backup.
Well, he didn't play a whole lot of games last year before he got hurt, did he?
I think 2.
4.
He
got hurt in week 4, at the beginning of week 4.
So
it was at the beginning of week 4.
And this
so
was
he made it farther in.
You know, he was supposed to break out last year, and we
He
really
was.
didn't get to see it.
And
so we don't know. We still don't know.
I think the talent, but then I think the talent's there with him. But also, we got to remember, coming off a major injury like that with your knee, you're highly susceptible to a soft tissue injury in that leg. Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
and if I ain't mistaken, his was like tore up.
Yeah,
like,
he tore, I believe, his ACL and his MCL.
Yeah,
and,
it was not just the ACL. He messed all kinds of stuff
and
up.
That's why I was shocked to hear that he was going to possibly play in the preseason, because I was not expecting that, which could be good for the ADP of Perine. But I've got Perine I'd be happy with him as my RB3 on my teams, but you could get him as your 4.
So where's he been drafted? Which round?
129. So
13th
13.
round?
Yeah. I mean, in 10 teams, 12 to 13, somewhere in there.
And honestly,
it's just crazy.
Honestly, he's probably going to drop further than that.
He probably will, as they talk about Javonte some more, you know. But anyway, that's my sleeper in RB. I think he's somebody that if you go 0 RB early, he could be your RB3 that you'll be extremely happy with. I mean, that's just me. But I would be happy with him as an RB3. So, but anyway, let's roll on to our wide receivers, guys. Josh, who do you got your wide receiver sleeper?
All right. Now, this may not be a popular pick here in Louisiana, and Lord knows I've talked about this guy really bad. But when I was looking down the list and I see this guy with an ADP of 104 going in the 10th to 11th round and see all the guys drafted around him, I just couldn't pass up. And it's Michael Thomas as my sleeper. And of course, this all depends on health. He's played only 10 games in the last 3 seasons. But sleeper's about upside and the draft position.
That's exactly right.
And I like the upside with him. He has had back-to-back all-pro years. We all know the talent is there. He's definitely older. He won't be the same player he was. But we know he still has the hands. He'll be competing with targets with Olave emerging with the Saints. But he's got a capable quarterback like we talked about earlier with Carr he seems to be happy with him. He actually seems happier than he's been in a couple years. I don't need to go on over any stats. We all know him very well, what he's done in the past. Just say you pick him, 10th round, you probably got all your starters. So, I mean, he ends up being, healthy and anything close to what he was, using him as a flex. I mean, he could be a league winner for you.
I mean, he 90% of the time in drafts nowadays, that's going to be your wide receiver 4, 10th round, probably, honestly. I mean,
definitely.
So, I mean, I think
it's not, then you're in
something
trouble.
else. And, when you were talking about him, I was just sitting there thinking about guys that were hurt or older wide receivers that kind of had success later on. And who kind of reminds me of? Anquan Bolden.
Oh, yeah.
Big physical wide receiver.
You're right. He's a lot with great hands.
Doesn't have the speed anymore, but could still do it with the physicality.
And he was a great red zone target.
He was. And
Thomas could end up being that. The couple of games he played, you remember the first game he played, he caught that big touchdown in the red zone for us.
That's right.
I mean, he looked a lot. You're right about that. He
And
does remind me of Ryan.
So something else that I think that we forget, a lot of people are like, well, the Saints really didn't throw the ball just a ton last year. Well, maybe that's because they were afraid to, because of their quarterback situation. And how much does the offense open up with Derek Carr under center now? Because all options are on the table for him and his ability. I mean, if you got a passing quarterback, I think you pass, and what does that do? That just makes your wide receivers more valuable. I mean, your running backs will be fine because they're going to throw and that's something else about Derek Carr. He's not afraid to check the ball down, which I love. And that was one thing I loved about Breeze. You could see him make his progressions and then go to that check down and not take a sack or scramble or wait too long. He would take that 2 to 3 yards and they would get tackled and we would keep the offense moving. And Lord, I've seen Derek Carr do it. I hope that he keeps doing it. And if he does, I think the more the offense is on the field, the more they're going to produce, and the more Michael Thomas is going to be valuable if he's healthy. And I also another thing, whenever Josh had texted earlier today, I want to point this out. This will be the first time that Michael Thomas will not have to face cornerback one coverage. I'm pretty sure Chris Olave is going to take the cornerback one coverage unless they're crazy. So Thomas is going to get the number 2 corner. And on most teams, I'll take that bet any day of the week if he's healthy. And I'll take that bet that Derek Carr pays attention to that if that's the case, especially if we're talking about one of these lockdown corners that are in the South. Now, the South does have these in our NFC South. We don't have great defenses, but there's a couple great corners in J.C. Horn in Carolina and what's that, A.J. Terrell? Is he still there in Atlanta?
And Jamel Dean in Tampa.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying because Olave's beat these guys with Dalton and that before, but they're not terrible cornerbacks. And, that's going to – if Derek Carr for some reason shies away, which I really don't think he will, but if he does, it's going to make him look toward Michael Thomas more. I think that's a great sleeper pick.
Yeah, I like that. And there's always something I say with Saints players is like you get the Saints boost in drafts around here. And I'm not really sure how that's going to work with Mike this year. You could take the perspective of Derek Carr's here, new offense. Mike's that very talented player, but he also has had the injuries and he might be the most hated player on the Saints for Saints fans. Yeah. There's a very good chance.
No, he is the most hated player.
I would dare to say he gets a drop. I don't think he gets a boost.
You think so?
No, I really don't. And personally, like if I was drafting with my feelings, then I would feel that way. But I don't. I really don't draft with my feelings. And it's sad because I love watching the teams that my players are on, but very rarely do I end up with Saints team players. I think I've only had Kamara maybe twice since he's been in the league, and then I've never had Michael Thomas. I just have never had Saints players. I had Breeze.
This might be the year.
I had Breeze 1 year. Okay, hear me out on this. I had Breeze 1 year, and I made it to the championship, and I had Breeze starting, and I had Jameis Winston on my bench, and it was that year they played Tampa at Tampa.
Oh, for the playoff berth.
Breeze threw 3 picks, 2 for pick sixes, and Jameis threw for 303 touchdowns, and I lost by like 6 points. So
there we go.
That was the only year I had Drew Brees on my team, and man, that was terrible, and that was for the championship. And I lost that year. I got
besides Taysom a couple weeks last year, I can't think of a Saints player I've ever had.
And
I really can't.
But I will say, personally, as far as fantasy wise, I think Michael Thomas is an excellent value. I mean, not very often could you get somebody this late that has been a wide receiver 1. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins ain't even going this late. And Lord, I'd take Michael Thomas over Hopkins.
Yeah.
Any day of the week.
And one more little tidbit about Mike and maybe a positive for his situation this year. I know he was one of the captains for the team for the first preseason game. Now, I don't know if
Mhm.
those are season-long things that they announce then or if it changes week by week, but it is good seeing him
Yeah.
as the captain. So that kind of shows that he has the respect of the team and his
That's right.
players and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
maybe the perception for Mike in the locker room isn't as bad as it is as fans. But
That's right. That's right. Who you got there, Clay? Give us your wide receiver.
I'm going to Baltimore, and I'm not going
Uh-oh.
Odell. I'm going Zay
Uh-oh.
Flowers.
Yeah.
So Zay Flowers, right now, let me make sure that he hasn't changed on ESPN.
That's all right.
108 still.
Yep.
Wide
Yep.
receiver 49, so almost 50, which is just insane. Reports from training camp, Peter King,
Excellent.
widely respected NFL
Mhm.
journalist. He's been to like all the training camps looking around. He said by far the best looking rookie in all the training camps in the NFL has been Zay Flowers. That
Yep.
he looks like he's already figured it out. And he's someone that was, I would say, definitely overlooked in the wide receiver class coming
Mhm.
in because he played at Boston College, who hasn't been relevant since Matt Ryan in like 07. But yeah, and Zay Flowers, very fast. He's obviously undersized, which feels like the situation with every Baltimore receiver. So you do
Yep.
have a little bit of worry of if he's just going to be like another Hollywood Brown.
Yep.
Does have that connection with Lamar already. I know Lamar had like a charity event and like a charity like kickball game or something, and Zay
Mhm.
Flowers was there like a couple weeks after draft day. Signed with Under Armour, so he already has a shoe deal. Justin Jefferson's like a mentor to him.
Mhm.
Lot of good things. Everything that you could possibly want from a rookie receiver, it seems like Zay Flowers has it. Odell, who obviously everyone knows Odell and his name, and everyone loves him. I don't know if he's going to be that kind of guy this year. He might. You never know. He is still Odell Beckham, but I
Mhm.
think Zay's going to be the guy that kind of takes the wide receiver one. And new offensive coordinator in Baltimore. I've talked about it plenty of times. I think they're going to pass the ball more than they ever have with Lamar. Mark Andrews still there over the middle of the field, going to draw plenty of attention. I
Mhm.
think Zay's gonna have a great year. I really do.
Yeah, I really hope. And honestly, if he could just stay healthy, I think de facto he'd be the number one pass catcher in that offense.
Yeah.
With Mark Andrews' health history the last couple years,
Odell
Rashad
and
Bateman, Odell. I mean, honestly, you could do worse drafting
Yeah.
somebody, on a team that, I don't think any wide receiver core has any more injury concerns than theirs
Yeah.
in the league. But I was looking, I know Bateman was activated from the PUP. That was a big thing that they were waiting on that. He was activated from the PUP this week.
Yeah.
Or at the end of last week, one of the two. He didn't play in the preseason game, but he's coming back. But Lord knows he's had his fair share of injuries.
Yeah, and this might be a place where the more wide receivers and pass catchers that are healthy, the better. And especially with someone like him who's going to be that deep threat. And with the Hollywood Brown comparisons, it was never a talent issue with Hollywood and Baltimore. I think he had 1,000 yards, maybe once, maybe twice in Baltimore with Lamar. It was just, can he stay healthy?
Yeah.
And if Zay Flowers can do that, which so far it looks that way, I don't know if he really had injury issues in Boston College. They were never on national TV.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think he's got the talent. And like I said, wide receiver 49. So right now you're looking at him with actually 3 spots behind Odell on ESPN.
Yeah.
Right ahead of Quentin Johnston, another rookie, Gabriel Davis, Rondell Moore in Arizona, DJ Chark, Darnell Mooney, Elijah Moore. I mean,
Yeah.
I like Flowers to be at least a wide receiver 30.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe even 25 or higher, given how the
Mhm.
health goes. But yeah, I mean, I like
and another big player, like we talked about, if you get big bonuses for big plays, and that's something you get with a scrambling quarterback. You get guys going deep when that quarterback breaks pocket, them guys go deep.
Yeah.
And Lamar's got the cannon, and if Zay Flowers has got the speed, it can be a beautiful marriage right there.
Yeah, that's one of the things about Lamar that even with the bad offensive scheme, in my opinion, the past couple of years, it's never been about the arm talent. He's always been one of the most accurate deep ball throws in the NFL. I believe him and Kyler are actually like the top 2 every year it seems like. And yeah, I mean Lamar can throw it, and it's not going to be a problem with that. It's just, can you stay healthy? So,
and it's ironic. I'm looking here at the ranks on Fantasy Pros, and they are all three within 10 rankings of each other. Bateman's 47, Flowers is 49, and Beckham's 56 ranked.
Wow, so they have Bateman as the top one.
I think he got a big boost whenever he got activated off the PUP list.
Yeah, but still, he hasn't done anything for me to get that boost.
Well, I think what it is he has that chemistry and history with Jackson already in the game, in the season, so that's going to give him a little bit. But I mean, they have Bateman 47 and Flowers 49, so I think that's just, they're probably just kind of hedging their bet a little bit. But I mean, there's no other wide receiver core in the league. I mean, that's all three of the starting wide receivers within 10 ranks, and they're that late. I mean,
Kansas City's probably like it as well, but you have Travis Kelce, so
they are. Yep, you got Kadarius Toney at 50 and Sky Moore at 51. So
yeah, there you go.
I mean, there's a couple of those that are right in that area that they don't know who's going to be what.
I'd take the bet of Zay Flowers or Odell being it before Bateman is this year.
Yeah,
I think Bateman is easily going to be the wide receiver 3 there.
Yeah. So, anything to add to that there, Josh?
No, like I said, a lot like Kansas City, where Kelsey's there. We got Mark Andrews with them. You really don't know what you got with the wide receivers. If I'm taking a shot, it's definitely going to be with the rookie. The upside there is way more, and that's what you're looking for. Because when you drafting, there, you're not thinking you're going to have a top 10, top 15.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You're looking for top 20, 25, somewhere around there. And with the way these rookies nowadays are coming into the league, I mean, give me the rookie.
Yeah, definitely.
That's right.
And another, as Derek mentioned, with the big play potential, I know Josh has been playing it in the Dirty Boot leagues for years with the 100-yard bonuses. Sometimes all it takes is one big play of 60 yards, and then next thing you know, Zay Flowers gets a couple 5-yard catches, and boom, he's got 100 yards, and he might win you your game that week. So
that's right.
I like it a lot.
Yep. And we'll just keep this on rolling. And since we already talked a little bit about Kansas City, that's going to lead me to my sleeper. I think Sky Moore is going to be one of those second-year wide receiver breakouts. I really do. Being drafted ADP 125, round 12. I know we got Kelce there. I mean, honestly, this whole pick for me, sleeper, is basically essentially me betting on the talent and the history and statistical data backing up the second-year talented wide receivers breaking out in their second year. And honestly, it's me just with pure speculation that Reed and Mahomes are going to notice Moore's talent and use him in their high-powered offense to get him more involved. We've been waiting for, a whole year to see somebody fill that Tyreek Hill role. Now, he's not Tyreek Hill athletically, but nobody really took that role on in those screenplays that he got, and some of those big deep post routes that he had. Nobody really filled that role last year. Maybe it's because he couldn't, I don't know, but I'm hoping that he just needed the experience and the knowledge of the playbook and the route tree that last year gave him.
Where did he come from? What school was that? It was something small, right?
No. I think he was.
Yeah, Western Michigan.
Yeah, well, you say that, but there's been. Let me see.
Well, I mean, Tyreek Hill was from West Alabama, I believe. So,
hold on. There was.
Western Michigan had Corey Davis,
Greg Jennings, Corey Davis. Who else? There was somebody else they were talking about the other day. Anyway, neither here nor there. Yeah. neither here nor there. Anyway, so another thing that leads me to believe that Skylar Moore played like 99% of the offensive snaps in the first preseason game with the first team offense in 2 and 3 wide receiver sets. That was a big thing for him last year. He only played in 3 wide receiver sets last year. Last year, Juju played in 2 sets, Juju and MVS. Now, Skylar Moore and MVS are in 2 wide receiver sets. So I think MVS is pretty much going to have the same role he had last year.
Yeah,
Deep
yeah.
guy,
He don't seem like
chunk it
someone that
up.
you're going to be scared
That's about
of.
it. But does Skylar Moore kind of slot more into the Juju role and possibly maybe get some of these screen plays and things like that? Because we know he's a lot more athletic and explosive than Juju. Not quite as big, but still a lot younger, a lot more athletic. I think it's and then something else. It's only a matter of time till Kelsey falls off. Who knows when that's going to be?
That is
I
true.
mean, he might have
true.
found the fountain of youth, but when
and the
he
man
does,
never gets hurt.
I know. I mean, I can't believe last year.
He's getting hurt first game this year after you said that.
I'm not betting
after I
on it.
draft
Well,
him, probably.
Well, Lord, I can't draft him early enough. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. I did that mock draft earlier today, and I had pick 5. I thought I was going to draft him, and Cooper Kupp's sitting there at pick 5. How do you not pick Cooper Kupp at 5? I'm just like, I mean, I get it, but it's like I can't pick Kelsey over Cooper Kupp. But anyway, so like he's gonna fall off eventually, and when he does, or when he gets hurt, I want somebody that's super talented to step into that role. Okay, and I mean, he's going pick 125. I know Josh likes Kadarius Toney, who is coming back from an injury, had a meniscus repair right before the preseason. I mean, right before training camp, because he hurt the same knee that he had a meniscus repair on at the end of last year. But he is arguably probably more athletic and more gifted than Moore, but he can't stay healthy. And Moore, healthy all year last year, still really talented. I don't know. I feel like it's just a matter of time, and I think he's the best chance to stay healthy and move into that wide receiver 1 role that Juju left. And
well, you got to think somebody's got to step up as a wide receiver there.
Eventually.
And if
Juju's gone,
yep.
They lost somebody else, another wide receiver.
Mecole Hardman.
Mecole Hardman.
Yes.
Yep. So they lost 2. And like you said, as much as I like Tony and the talent's there, he hasn't been able to stay on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody's going to step up. Might as well be him.
And drafted ADP 125, wide receiver 4. And you could argue if, heaven forbid, for people that drafted him, Kelsey gets hurt, wide receiver 1 upside. Who else is stepping up in that offense?
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes is still there.
Yeah. That was another thing that I had noted. If Kelsey's out, are we saying that Mahomes and Reed aren't going to figure out a way to get it to their most talented athletic players? Of course not.
Yeah.
You know,
and even if Kelsey plays every game, Kelsey might get 1,500 yards. Mahomes going to throw for 5,000. Who's getting another 3,500? So somebody's got to do it.
So, I think he's a great value right now. I think his stock does rise as preseason goes, and more people talk about him being on the field in all pretty much all snaps with the ones. I think his value goes up. So, get him while you can. He might not be as valuable, the closer we get to a lot of our drafts, but I think he's somebody that I'm going to try to target, at least try to get him at my wide receiver 4. You might be having to draft him as your 3. There's some guys that I might like a little bit more as far as their floor at that wide receiver 3 range right now. But if you get him as your wide receiver 4, man, I don't think you could ask for much more than that with his upside in that offense. So,
yeah, I agree. I agree. It's only a matter of time till someone that's not Tyreek Hill does something.
That's right. That's exactly right. And in that offense for sure. But let's keep it rolling and on to our last position. Josh, who do you got as your sleeper tight end?
I'm going with Irv Smith Jr. I mean, if you
Mm-hmm.
punt on a tight end position and take a late round flyer, you want a player on an elite offense with a good quarterback, and Cincinnati is that's one of those teams. He's in his fourth year. He's missed most of his career due to injury, so he's another one. I have picked a lot of guys that have been hurt. Like I said earlier, those high risk, high reward guys.
Mm-hmm.
But he's looking to break out on a good team. He's an athletic tight end. He's shown flashes at times with some fantasy upside. He's only 25. He don't have any competition really on his team, and I think if he's healthy, he could flourish on this team that's going to throw the ball a lot.
Eighth
and
easiest.
His ADP's like 7th round, I think.
No, it's way lower than that, bro.
17th round. I said it wrong.
168.
round.
That's right, 168.
17th round. I mean, hey, that's not picking a tight end till the very end.
Last pick, yep. And
Exactly.
He's got the 8th easiest strength of schedule for a tight end. 8th easiest. So a good schedule for him, good offense, good quarterback, athletic player. I mean, I like it. I really do. What about you, Clay?
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. You want me to give my pick now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Let's roll
on. I've got Sam Laporta. We talked about him a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
He's out of Iowa, tight end. You got Hawkinson, you got Fant. We already talked about them earlier as well. George Kittle, another one. Yeah, Sam Laporta, 188 overall right now, tight end 21. So obviously undrafted. He's someone that it feels like you're waiting on Detroit to find that tight end that gets used after Hawkinson left. You saw a little bit of flashes last year with like Zylstra and like Brock Wright. Dan Campbell was a tight end coach. Say he loves the position, obviously. Every report out of training camp is that Laporta and Goff have great chemistry already, and that anything that Goff throws towards Laporta, he catches.
Yep.
Jameson Williams out weeks 1 through 6, so that's half your fantasy regular season. Laporta is going to be out there behind Amon-Ra, maybe behind Gibbs. We don't know how that role is going to play out yet in terms of receiving, but there's a real chance that Laporta's the second or third most targeted player for the first at least 6 weeks on this Detroit team.
I was about to say, I think he garners all the targets that Jameson Williams vacates for the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I really don't think it's a 33-year-old Marvin Jones.
No.
I think Jahmyr Gibbs does get those, but Jahmyr Gibbs is getting the Swift targets.
Yeah.
I think he is a great pick, and I was gonna. I've been using Fantasy Pros. They have a great breakdown on some of these players, and just a little background on the guy. A lot of people don't know what he looks like, don't know about athleticism. 6'3", 250, runs a 4.59.
Yeah.
4.59. I bet freaking half the players on your local high school team can't run a 4.59, if not 90% of them. And this dude's 6'3", 250. And I don't know as far as the grades, but it says at the scouting combine he posted a relative athletic score of 9.02. I don't know if that's out of 10. I don't know what that means, but
at
I
the
feel
combine,
like
it's out of 10. Yeah.
I feel like they would not post that if it was not relevant. So, and he's a 22-year-old tight end. I mean, I'm like you. And then you say Campbell. I knew he was tight ends coach. You don't think he can't spot a good tight end?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. A former tight end going out and picking this guy in the draft.
That's right.
You don't think he's going to use him?
And not only that, we know they throw the ball a ton. Those targets are going somewhere. Something else. Now, I will say, you were talking about his draft position. Fantasy Pros, he's been creeping up a lot on it. He's already up to 142 on Fantasy Pros.
Oh, wow. What tight end does that make him?
He's still way down there. As far as their rankings, he's like 24. But as far as the draft position, it's probably still
Yeah.
I would still think outside the top 14, 15,
Yeah.
he's still getting drafted after Komet, Everett, Johnson, Kincaid, I mean, drafted after several of these guys.
Yeah, and the big thing is that he is a rookie tight end, so there comes with some caution because as we know, I think there's only been 2 tight ends ever to hit 1,000 yards, and that's Kyle Pitts and Mike Ditka. So you don't expect like this insane season out of him, but I wouldn't be shocked if he gives you 600, 700 yards and 7 touchdowns.
That's
And it goes back to nobody knowing who it is.
Yeah.
So you could probably get him with the last pick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I will say
might be someone that you maybe take a flyer on as that last pick with a Darren Waller or Kyle Pitts, someone like that has injury concerns. Dallas Goedert.
Mm-hmm. And those stats you just mentioned, I will go ahead and tell you that's like top 7 tight end stats that you just said.
Oh,
like you ain't got to have 1,000 yards as a tight end.
Tight ends are so hard.
And because the guy that I'm about to talk about was tight end 9, and his stats ain't near that pretty last year. And I do think he outperforms them this year. But I think Laporta is a great value.
End of the day, somebody else is going to catch the ball besides Amon-Ra.
He's somebody I'm going to target late in drafts just because I think Amon-Ra does get a boost. Like I talked about him on the last pod. I think he takes another proverbial step forward into that top wide receiver tier.
Yeah.
He's just so talented. And him and Goff have this chemistry that we seen last year that you just don't see with every quarterback and number 1 wide receiver in the league. And I think that takes Amon-Ra to the next level. If he gets a few more touchdowns and adds about 15 to 20 catches, he's in that top 5 wide receiver conversation.
Definitely.
But I think, and if anything, I think that benefits Sam Laporta because he's going to garner that much more attention, and that's going to give Sam Laporta a lot more opportunity in those underneath and in the middle of the field.
Definitely.
But great pick. We're going to keep it on going. My guy is ranked a little bit higher than y'all's picks, but I still think he's being slept on pretty heavily, and that's Tyler Higbee for the Rams. Last year, with Baker Mayfield as his quarterback for a lot of the year, he was the tight end 9. He's being drafted right now as the 13th tight end off the board, but he's easily the number 2 pass catching option behind Cooper Kupp with Matt Stafford coming back this year. I mean, they got Van Jefferson, but even like Van Jefferson with Stafford was there before, didn't really catch on.
Yeah.
And Tyler Higbee and Stafford have a pretty good connection we've seen in the past.
Ben Skoranek or whatever, the other receiver.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean Higbee, he's somebody that he feels safe.
Yeah,
he's not going to be
good.
He's not going to be somebody that gets you maybe ever 15 points in a week, but he also is going to get you more than 5, which some weeks that's all you need from your tight end position because tight ends are so hard, man. They're so hard. And if he catches you a touchdown, he's a top 10 play. That's it.
Yep. And I'm about to go through some stats with you that really, for him being tight end 9, I did not realize, and I could really see him going up from this year with Matthew Stafford playing, seemingly coming back healthy.
Hopefully,
and they're also anticipating them to have a bottom 5 defense in the league because they pretty much sold off everybody.
Yeah, I think they have. So I think I saw that when they brought in their 90-man roster for training camp, they had like 53 rookies. Like they have so many young guys that
I think
it's a disaster there.
There are several analysts that think they'll have the worst defense in the league.
I would not be shocked. While they have Aaron freaking Donald.
So what do you think Sean McVay is going to do? I'm sure he's going to be throwing the ball a lot, which is another reason that I'm high on Kupp this year. If he can stay healthy, I know he's banged up a little bit now, but they're saying there's no doubt he'll be ready for week 1 without a setback. But Higbee, all right. So they let Allen Robinson go, who was a failed experiment. I thought he would be pan out okay, but I think Clay, you liked him too last year, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, I loved him.
Anyway, he's gone for what targets he did garner. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing is the Stafford upgrade at quarterback. Coming back with Higbee. All right. So last year, Tyler Higbee finished 4th in targets and 5th in receptions, but only had 3 touchdowns on the whole year because that offense was so terrible, right? You can't tell me he's only going to have 3 touchdowns again. If him and Stafford are healthy all year, there's no way. And I don't see any reason why he can't finish that high in targets and receptions again, at least.
You said 4th in targets?
That is correct.
So that,
he had 108 targets
so
last
that's
year.
Kelsey, Andrews, and who else? Maybe Dalton Schultz or something. Maybe last year.
Maybe
I'd have to go pull it. I'd have to go.
But yeah, still, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, I would probably say Hawks. But yeah, 4th in targets, 5th in receptions, but only 3 touchdowns. So he was a tight end 9. Barring another injury from Stafford, I really don't see any reason why he can't be any better. And he's being drafted just outside outside top 10 tight ends.
Yeah.
But if he puts up, I mean, there's no way he doesn't put up top 10 production with Stafford back and the defense because their defense wasn't that bad for most of the year last year. They kept them in a lot of the games until they started selling everybody off.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, it was a crapshoot at the end of the year. But there's
and
a lot of question marks.
Even if some of those targets and receptions and those great numbers for him last year do go down, a tight end that plays 17 games as the starting tight end is going to get more than 3 touchdowns on the year, you would think. Yep. So if that 3 touchdowns goes to 6 or 7, then and those yards or targets or whatever do go down, you probably still have a better year just because touchdowns are that valuable.
That's right. And he's being drafted outside the top 10 at 126 outside top 10. There's a lot of question marks and a lot of tight ends in those rounds. But there's one thing he's got a good rapport with Stafford in a familiar offense with an offensive-minded head coach with a poor defense and a good passing quarterback. And like I said, possibly the number 2 pass-catching option on his team.
Yeah.
There's no reason to think that he can't finish at tight end 5 or 6 if he scores some more touchdowns. I mean, that's it. Absolutely. That's it. Now, is he going to be 1 or 2, 3? No, I don't think
he's not going to be 1.
5.
I'll say that.
Yeah. But, we got to see Kelsey stay healthy.
Yeah,
but,
that's true.
Anyway,
that's true.
But no, 5 or 6. I don't think there's any doubt that he could do that with Matthew Stafford. So
yeah.
I'm pretty pumped. He's definitely somebody like Josh saying, if I go late tight end, if I don't get Darren Waller, who I'm targeting in all my drafts, I just gave away a draft strategy right there for anybody that drafts with me in upcoming drafts. I guarantee you, if Darren Waller's sitting there close to one of my picks, I'm drafting him.
They said he's looking amazing too.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, and Daniel Jones could get him the ball. I don't know. Honestly, who have we seen play with Daniel Jones? OBJ was a shell of himself, because he was there wasn't that his last year, and then he held out or something when Daniel Jones was there right after Eli.
Yeah,
left.
Daniel Jones also sucked back then.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones got Brian Dable when something miraculous happened last year. But yeah, Waller's definitely going to be his best target that he's probably ever had.
I will say there's a reason the Manning brothers put their stamp on Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
There's no way he was that, he didn't have it in him.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about it on the pods before. Sometimes it just takes the right developer to mold these quarterbacks for them to turn into who they need to be. I mean, look at Geno Smith, like we talked about. Comes out of nowhere. And now I'm not saying Pete Carroll's the quarterback whisperer by any means. Oh, Lord, help us. Yeah. But, I'm not even 100% sure who the offensive coordinator is right there
I think they just got hired somewhere else.
Yeah.
I forget who it is. We
But
talked
way,
about them on the pod recently.
Yeah, so sometimes it just takes the right offensive coordinator to unlock that potential. And I think if that's the case for Daniel Jones and Dable has unlocked it, I mean, who knows? That offense could take a step forward and be fantasy relevant. I don't think he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be a top 10 quarterback in the league this year, personally.
Yeah.
I mean, he could, but I think the only reason I think he could is because he does run the ball more than some of these other passing quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But he also has gotten banged up doing that in the past, and I just wonder if it's not in his mind, you know.
Yeah.
So,
but one thing before we wrap this up or whatever, I forgot I do have a deeper sleeper, I guess you could say, for wide receiver. I did want to mention he's wide receiver 75 right now. And if y'all have any guys, y'all can mention them as well. Josh probably knows my love for him. Bobby Trees, Robert Woods. Robert Woods
to the well.
197, wide receiver 75. So that's a wide receiver, 7 or 8 on your team if you even draft that many. Last year didn't finish nothing crazy, 59, which is still 16 higher than what he's getting drafted at now, on 91 targets. He rested the first preseason game, so I guess that already shows that he's beaten out Nico Collins or John Mechie or anybody like that. Got paid $10 million to come to Houston. No one else around him has really had any proven success in the NFL yet. And while last year he was on Tennessee on a running team, obviously Derrick Henry, a team that was kind of good, always in games late, stuff like that. He's going to be on a bad team this year. A bad Houston team that's got CJ Stroud, that's going to throw the ball a lot, you would think. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets over 100 targets. And as wide receiver 75, 197, undrafted, I don't think he needs to go undrafted. I would definitely take a flyer on him round 16, round 15, something like that. And I'm not going to say he's going to finish top 30. I won't, but he's probably going to be the wide receiver 1 there for quite a bit. And I don't know, he's just a solidified guy that I like a lot. So
I got you. All right.
Y'all have anybody else that y'all want to that's deep down that y'all like and you want to throw them out? Go for it.
I don't want to rain on your parade now, Clay, but I will see your Bobby Trees and raise you Tank Dell.
Okay.
And if you don't know who he is, you might not.
Yeah.
But you will. It's coming.
You think?
And he plays for Houston. And he's already making splashes in the preseason.
Yeah.
And in practice. First game, 8 targets, 5 catches for 65 and a touchdown with the second unit. Now he's running with the ones.
Yeah.
But he's really making some waves with the second unit. Now, Bobby Trees is going to be out there. You know why? Because he's probably the best run blocking wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
Which is another reason that Tennessee brought him in last year, not to catch the ball, which, Lord, that might be what they did with DeAndre Hopkins. And he just fooled everybody saying that he was coming for a championship and he just wanted some money. And they're like, we'll pay you to block.
Yeah.
But that's about it. But Tank Dell is somebody that is one of those undersized, shifty wide receivers, 5'10", 165, okay? But they're saying that nobody's been able to cover him, which now Houston's defense is probably, as good as many second strings. Nobody's been able to cover him in practice. And him and CJ Stroud have developed a rapport in practice. They said he's been making a lot of big splashy plays in OTA, spring training and all that in practice. He hasn't cracked it in there with the ones yet, but if he gets a chance and makes some big plays, it might not be out of the realm to see him because he's a different player than Nico Collins and Bobby Trees. He's not big, if anything, he's going to be that little slot guy that comes in there and they throw a screen play and he takes it 50 yards to the house.
Yeah.
Because nobody, like that Darren Sproles, he's like sitting there running under people's legs and stuff.
I do think that one of Dale, Mechie, or Collins, one of them has to arrive to some sort of fantasy relevance, and then I think Bobby Trees is going to be out there still. So as I said, a guy that's wide receiver 75, I would take the shot on him to be a guy that if all fails, you have a player that you can put in at wide receiver get a
Yep.
spot start, and know, hey, maybe he catches a touchdown because he's probably going to be out there for 90% of the snaps.
That's right. And who's to say that C.J. Stroud doesn't develop this chemistry with this seasoned veteran wide receiver that he knows he can trust to throw the ball exactly where he knows he's going to be? Because we've heard that in the past when he was at the Rams. He's an excellent route runner.
Oh, yeah.
Precision. And that's something as a young wide receiver, if you're working on your timing routes, you can really develop a trust with a wide receiver on that because you know he's going to be in that spot every time he runs that route. And if you want to time it to throw him open like you need to in the NFL, you can rely on that with him, where you might not can do that with a Tank Dell or a John Mechie, or even a Nico Collins, because he's still fairly young.
Definitely.
And
we've seen someone like Brandon Cooks be fantasy relevant on a bad Houston team, while Robert Woods isn't Brandon Cooks, I don't think. But it's still a veteran wide receiver who has been successful in the NFL. So I like taking the shot on him, and I'll probably own him in every league I have, just because he's going to be there, and it's that you can take the shot on late. So
that's right. And if C.J. Stroud gets a connection with him, he's going to pay off big time for you.
Yeah.
So, what about you, John? You got anybody super late or anything like that you want to add?
Well, I got a guy that you probably don't need to draft and will not be drafted, I doubt, but you need to have him on your radar and probably pick him up third or fourth week in your pickups, and that's Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yep.
Because who else are the besides the tight end are they going to?
I don't know.
And he showed signs of being fantasy relevant last year.
Yeah, he can be what everyone thought Kadarius Toney was going to be there.
Yep, and he showed signs of it last year.
So, he's injured. Yeah. I mean, I think when he gets back on the field, he's the best option at wide receiver.
Yep. Completely agree. I think that's a great one right there. Really leading.
But you don't really need to draft him.
Nope.
I don't think, because I don't think anybody's going to draft him.
Yep.
But as soon as you see where there's a chance he's going to play, you're going to probably have somebody on your team that was a flop that you can get rid of. Pick him up a week or two early and just see what happens.
Yep. I think that's a great prelude. That's somebody that'll be on one of our waiver pods coming up at the beginning of the season, because like you said, they got nobody else to throw to. They really don't. I mean, Sterling Shepard's not. I mean, he's had so many knee injuries. Lord, I'd be shocked if he could go out there and run a 5. And then you got Darius Slayton, who only catches about two catches a game for 40-yard deep balls, if that. Yeah. And then he might drop one of them.
Harris Campbell is there, but never did anything really in Indianapolis.
I mean, they got people there, but Wan'Dale's by far probably the most talented wide receiver they have.
Yeah, I definitely say that.
And when he comes back, they know it. Brian Dable is, he knows it. He's smart enough of an offensive coordinator. He's going to get him the ball, because he tried to last year, and it worked when he did. He just couldn't. He just got hurt. So we'll see if he bounces back this year, and keep an eye on him, because everybody's going to have that one bench spot right there where this guy that they're just not happy with, they drafted him and it didn't pan out, and you could cut him, right away, because nobody else is going to pick him up.
And if your league has an IR spot like it should, someone's inevitably going to be hurt on your team in the first couple weeks. So throw them on the IR, take a flyer on a Wan'Dale or someone like that.
You could draft him. You could actually, you could draft him with your last pick, put him on IR, and then pick somebody up.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. So, all right.
Because if you wait until he plays, and has a good game, you're not going to get him.
Yeah, you're going to have to use your high waiver priority pick if you have that, or if you're in an auction league, you're going to have to spend way too much for him when you could have got him for free if you just listen to us. So, but anyway, but that's going to round us out for this week. And once again, we appreciate everybody listening, and we appreciate if you just go to your podcast, subscriber or app, whatever you like, like, subscribe, download, give us some feedback on the podcast. We really enjoy this, guys. We're going to come at y'all. We're going to get another pod out later this week. We're going to have our bust pod and come out with some guys that we just don't think are going to live up to expectation this year and that are being highly overdrafted, and for good reason. And we're going to come up with that later on this week. We're going to continue trying to be a little bit more proactive, like we said we want to be. We haven't got the pods as short as we like, but it's early in fantasy year, and we're super pumped. And there's a lot we want to talk about. And
absolutely,
we'll trim them down as the year goes. But
once the season starts, there'll be a lot more shorter.
Yeah,
I would.
That's
think.
right.
Just
once
because
we get all this information out, that's right.
Yeah. I'll say that.
But anyway, we appreciate everything, guys, and y'all have a good week. God bless, and we'll see y'all and come back at y'all later on this week.
All right.